So one of the things that I remember reading in your book that kind of really struck me actually was the thing about deadbeat dads. I think society had almost been brainwashed into thinking there's all these deadbeat dads all over the place. And when I read what you wrote, you said there was no government or academic study that has ever demonstrated, in fact, there's no scientific evidence that has ever adduced to show that large numbers of fathers are voluntarily abandoning their children. The epidemic of fatherlessness is not primarily caused by fathers abandoning their children. Virtually every aspect of what I call the bad divorced dad image has turned out to be a myth. An inaccurate and damaging stereotype. Not only is this myth seriously inaccurate, it has led to harmful and dangerous social policies. When you said that, that hit me like a ton of bricks because like most people, you hear things enough and you start to believe that they're true. When you said that, I said, can this really be true? Can you talk a little bit more about the research that you did and how you came to that conclusion and so on?
Right. Well, Braver's study came out shortly before my book, and that showed, importantly, it punctured a lot of those myths, like the deadbeat dad. So I was able to build upon Braver's study and just show that the deadbeat dad was not only a myth, I really argued that it was a hoax. That it was contrived. That there was no evidence whatsoever. In fact, that it was a form of an abuse of government power. That was not only it was not an empty myth. It was actually quite a serious abuse of innocent people.
Right.
And it starts with the basic foundational injustice is the fact that they can take your children away without you having done anything wrong, legally speaking. And once they do that, they then can force you to pay, as Jed Abraham says in his book, to pay for the filching of your own children. In other words, they take the father's children away and then they send him a bill for the child support.
Right.
And then they can charge virtually any amount of money. The injustices then multiply. They pile one upon the other. Having taken your children, they then send you a bill and force you to pay for it. Then they can multiply the amount. There's no limit. To the amount basically that they force you to pay. In theory, there are guidelines in every state, but in practice, the guidelines are so loose and so subjective that virtually anything qualifies as an excuse to increase the child support over the guidelines. And of course, there are basic conflicts of interest here. Because the high child support levels have several benefits for the divorce industry. First of all, by generously rewarding the mothers with child support, you're giving them incentive to file more divorces. By filing more divorces, you create more money for the attorneys and for others in the divorce.
And you destroy more families.
Correct. You destroy more families. By charging high amounts of divorce, you also of child support, you also channel large amounts of payment through the state child support enforcement machinery. And the state governments get federal funds for every dollar they collect. So by setting the child support high, you first of all encourage more divorce. Secondly, you bring more money through the state coffers, picking up more federal monies, which the state can use for any purposes they wish. So the state is not, and its functionaries are not disinterested parties. They have a very tangible self-interest, vested interest in high divorce, high child support, and criminalized fathers.
In Texas, this is a big issue because maybe you're familiar with this already, but for the last, I believe it's 11 years, Texas has led all of the states in child support collection. And they brag about this. This is a regularly bragging point. Maybe 2 years ago, I think I actually had my video camera there with Attorney General Ken Paxton, and the question was asked about Title 4D money. And he said it creates a lot of money for the state. And his office is responsible for it. Out of his office, the people that work for the Attorney General, there are 4,200 people. 2,600 of them work in child support enforcement. 62% of the people that work for him work in child support enforcement. And to say that they are looking to do things the right way is a serious misstatement of the truth. They are looking, in fact, in our Texas Family Code, there is a place, and I think it's in section 201 point, I don't remember the exact statute, but that there is it's written that the judges should do things in such a way so as to maximize Title 4D funding. So this whole industry, or as you call it, a hoax, or whatever you want to call it, it has a lot of racketeering, dirtiness, filth on its hands. I don't know what you would call it.
These are not these words you're using are not too strong. I've heard people describe it as just a system of child kidnapping and extortion. It's essentially a racket.
It is a racket, yeah, exactly what you just said.
It's a huge business that all depends upon seizing control of as many children from their fathers as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody makes any money, nobody gets any political power until the children are taken away from their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basic, that's the fundamental injustice that gets the ball rolling.
Right.
And as you say, this is a huge business. Large numbers of government officials and private contractors and lawyers and others are making enormous amounts of money on this injustice, and this is why it doesn't change.
Right, right.